Under question number 16, we need to identify that which among these four states share their high courts with other states. In this context, Andhra Pradesh is a correct statement because it shares its high court with Telangana. Coming to the second statement, Tamil Nadu is an incorrect one because it shares its high court with Puducherry, which is a union territory and not a state. Thirdly, Assam is also an correct statement because it shares its high court with Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland and Mizoram. Lastly, Haryana is also a correct statement because it shares its high court with Punjab. Hence, the correct answer would be option D, that is 1, 3 and 4. Please also have a look at the explanations. Question number 17 gives us names of 4 committees and we need to identify that which one of them was set up to examine the socio-economic and educational status of Muslims in India. Now this is a very direct question and the correct answer is Sachar Committee, as it was a high-level committee which was established in 2005 to look into the details of the marginalization of the Muslim community in India. Apart from this, for knowledge enhancement, let us also look into the domains of the other 3 committees mentioned. Now, Mullah Committee was introduced for prison reforms. Sri Krishna Committee was formulated for data protection. And lastly, Sunil Mehta Committee was formed to look into tackling non-performing assets. Hence, our correct answer would be option B, that is the Sachar Committee. Please also have a look at the explanation. Question number 18 contains 5 statements and we need to answer that which of these are considered to be as threats to democracy at national and international level. Now the first statement says that if a country is dominated by the military, its democracy is threatened. This is a very direct and correct statement because democracy itself means rule by the people, for the people and of the people. And if a country is governed by the military, this definition deems to be incorrect. Hence, political dominance of the military is a threat to democracy. Moving to the second statement, it says that lack of awareness of rights among citizens is also a threat to democracy. Now, it is also very direct and absolutely correct because the main element of democracy is involvement of all the citizens in the working of country. And if the citizens are not aware properly, this idea seems to lie redundant. Hence, this option is also correct and lack of awareness will prove as a threat to democracy. The third statement says that foreign intervention is a threat to democracy, which is absolutely correct because it is opposed to the definition of democracy, as citizens have a collective responsibility to help build the nation. However, if a foreign entity plays a strong role in the politics of any other country, it can be considered as a threat to the democracy of that country. Coming to the fourth statement, lack of a strong opposition party is again a threat to democracy, as then the absolute power would be in the hands of one single party and there would be a government which is not responsible. Coming to the last statement, it says that ineffective international institutions can also be considered as a threat to democracy. Now, this statement is also correct because if international institutions are not functioning properly, it may lead to encroachment of one nation in other nations' affairs, which again deems to be a threat to democracy. In this context, our final answer would be option D, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. All these statements are correct. Please also have a look at the explanation. Question number 19 gives us 3 statements and we need to consider that which of these are key elements of a democratic government. Now the first statement says that people's participation can be considered as a key element of democratic government. Now this is a very direct and correct statement because we all know that democracy is rule by the people, for the people and of the people. and it is in this context that citizens play a key role in elections, as each adult citizen must have one vote and each vote must have one value. And this in turn makes their participation a key element of democratic government. Coming to the second statement, it reads that respect for citizens' rights is again a key element of democratic government. This statement is also correct because a democratic government rules within the limits set by the Constitution and citizens' rights. The third statement says that limitations on the power of government is also considered as a key element of democratic government. Now, the final statement is also correct, as our elected leaders cannot do whatever they like after winning the elections. They have to respect certain basic rules and are accountable not only to people but also to other independent officials. Hence, limitations on the power of the government is a key element of democracy. Therefore, our final answer would be option D, that is, all three statements are correct. Please also have a look at the explanations. Question number 20 contains 4 statements, and we need to identify that which of these are problems associated with democratic countries. Let us first go through these statements. The first one says policy paralysis. The second one says political instability. The third one says vote bank politics. And the last one says political corruption. Now, if we look closely at these 4 statements, we find a common point, that is elections or frequent changing of leaders in a democracy. Why do we point this out as a commonality? Let's move back to our statements. Now, policy paralysis can be considered as a problem associated with democratic countries because the newly elected leader has to consult many people before starting a new policy or resolving any issues with the previous one, which may lead to delays and sometimes a paralysis. Similarly, political instability can also be attributed to frequent changing of leaders. Apart from that, vote bank politics is also attributed to frequent elections because democracy today is all about power play and political competition. There is no scope of morality, and this further leads to electoral corruption. The last statement too can also be explained in a similar fashion because any leader who comes to power may acquire a strong foothold by means of corruption. Therefore, our correct answer would be option D, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Please also refer to the explanations. Question number 21 contains 3 statements, and we need to identify that which among them are correct about Dr. Br Ambedkar. Now, before moving to the question, let us understand something about Dr. Br Ambedkar. The most important fact to remember about him is that he was the chairman of the drafting committee. He is also known as the father of the Indian Constitution. Br Ambedkar was a champion of Dalit rights, and his main contribution was the upliftment of lower caste people. In this context, let us move back to our own statements. The first statement says that he was the founder of the Swatantra Party. Now, this statement is incorrect, as C. Rajgopalachari was the founder of Swatantra Party. The second statement says that he was a law minister in the first cabinet of post-independent India. Now, this statement is absolutely correct, since we have background that he was known as the father of the Indian Constitution and was also the chairman of drafting committee. Later, he became the law minister in post-independent India. Now, the third statement says that Br Ambedkar was the chairman of the Constituent Assembly. This is incorrect because Dr. Sachidanand Sinha was the first chairman of Constituent Assembly. However, he was there on a temporary basis, and after some time, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the president of Constituent Assembly. Hence, the correct option would be option B, that is 2 only. Please also refer to the explanations. Question number 22 contains 3 statements, and it reads that which of the following are prohibited under the Model Code of Conduct. Now let us first understand what do we mean by Model Code of Conduct. It is a set of guidelines issued by Election Commission of India, and these guidelines are pertaining to the conduct of the political parties and the candidates during elections. Now the Model Code of Conduct comes into force immediately on the announcement of election in order to ensure free and fair elections. In light of these statements, let us go back to our question. The first statement says that using any place of worship for election propaganda is prohibited under the Model Code of Conduct. Now this is a correct statement because we cannot use any place of worship for election. Secondly, using government vehicles for election campaigns is again prohibited. So this is also a correct statement. And the last statement says that making promises of providing public facilities by ministers is again prohibited under the Model Code of Conduct. Hence, the correct answer would be option D, that is all three statements are correct. Please also have a look at the explanations. Question number 23 contains 4 statements and we need to understand them in the context of powers which are exercised by the Election Commission of India. Now we all know that Election Commission of India is responsible for conducting fair elections, and it is with respect to this duty that they possess certain powers. Let us first discuss what are the powers possessed by the Election Commission of India. Number 1, Election Commission takes decisions on every aspect on the conduct and control of elections right from the announcement of the elections to the declaration of results. Secondly, it is also responsible for implementing a certain code of conduct on the political parties and the candidates who are contesting elections. Third power under Election Commission of India is that during the election period, they can order the government to follow some guidelines to prevent use and misuse of governmental power or to enhance their chances to win elections. Also, during the election duty, the government officers work under the control of Election Commission and not under the government. This is an important point. And lastly, the Election Commission can order a repoll if they believe that the elections were not fair in some booths. Now in this context, let us go back to our own question. Statement 1 says announcement of election dates. Now this comes under the purview of Election Commission of India. Secondly, implementation of the Code of Conduct is also a power which is under the Election Commission of India, and it is also responsible for punishing any candidate or party which violates it. Thirdly, the power to issue orders to the government officials is also under Election Commission of India when they are under election duty. Finally, Election Commission can also order to repoll if they do not feel that the process was fair. Hence, the correct option would be option D, that is all 4 statements are correct. Please also have a look at the explanations. Question number 24 contains 3 statements and it is asked that which among the following declarations has or have to be submitted by the candidates before contesting elections. Now we know that Election Commission of India is dedicated towards conducting fair elections in India, and in this context a candidate is required to submit relevant details justifying his background and previous records. In this context, let us go back to our question. It asks that whether details of assets and liabilities are required, so it is a correct option as a candidate needs to submit his or her details. Secondly, the candidate also needs to disclose any pending criminal cases. Hence, statement 2 is also correct. Thirdly, the educational qualifications of the candidate are also required. Hence, statement 3 is also correct. Now, another important point that we need to keep in our mind is that the information provided by the candidates has to be made public in order to provide opportunity to the voters to make their decision on the basis of information provided. Therefore, the correct answer would be option D, that is all three statements are correct. Please also refer to the explanations. Question number 25 contains 4 statements and we need to check them in the context of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Now before moving to the question, let us learn little bit about Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Now the Indian Parliament consists of 2 houses, that is Lok Sabha or House of the People and Rajya Sabha or Council of States. Now Lok Sabha is considered more important as compared to Rajya Sabha because the members of Lok Sabha are directly elected by the people and thus exercise real power on behalf of the people. On the other hand, Rajya Sabha is indirectly elected and performs special functions such as interest of various states, regions or federal units. Now in light of this information, let us go back to our question. Statement 1 reads that Lok Sabha exercises more power in money matters than Rajya Sabha. Now, we just discussed that Lok Sabha is considered to be more important because the members of Lok Sabha are directly elected by the people. Hence, statement 1 is correct. The second statement says that the Lok Sabha is more important than the Rajya Sabha in matters related to states in India. Now, this is incorrect because Rajya Sabha is comparatively more powerful in this matter as it contains 2 special powers. These include number 1, the power to redraw state boundaries is passed under Rajya Sabha. Secondly, Rajya Sabha also has an upper hand in all India state services. Hence, statement 2 is incorrect. Coming to the third statement, both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha have equal powers for the passage of ordinary bills. This is a correct statement as in this domain, both the houses have equal powers. In the last statement, it is suggested that the Rajya Sabha has more control over the Council of Ministers than the Lok Sabha. Now this is a very direct and incorrect statement because we know that Lok Sabha exercises more control over the Council of Ministers. Hence, our final answer would be option B, that is statement 1 and 3 are correct. Please also have a look at the explanations. Question number 26 is a very direct question. There are 3 statements given and we need to find out that which among these are a part of the parliament. Now we know that parliament consists of 2 houses, that is the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. So statement 2 and 3 are directly correct. Let us discuss something about the president. Now the president is considered to be a part of the parliament. However, he is not the member of either of these houses. So we must remember this statement and the previous information automatically tells us that the president is also a part of the parliament. Hence, the correct option will be option D, that is all 3. Please also have a look at the explanation. Question number 27 contains 2 statements and we need to identify that which among them are correct. Now, the first one says that the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the House of People. This is a correct statement because this provision is directly mentioned in the Article 75 of the Indian Constitution. Coming to the second statement, it says that the Prime Minister selects and appoints his or her Council of Ministers. Now this statement is incorrect because according to Article 75, the role of Prime Minister is to advise the President on appointing of Council of Ministers, but the actual appointment is done by the President. Therefore, our final answer would be option A, that is 1 only. Please also have a look at the explanation. Question number 28 contains 3 statements and we need to identify that which among them are the components of democratic rights in a country. Now in this context, let us first understand the definition of democratic rights. Now democratic rights are socially recognized claims which are written into a law in a democracy. They can be identified as reasonable claims of a person over other fellow beings, the society and the government. It is important to note that these reasonable claims should be available to others as well in equal measure. And lastly, these democratic rights come with an obligation that we need to respect others' rights as well. Therefore, in this context, we can clearly see that statement 1, 2 and 3 are correct. Hence, our final answer would be option D, that is, all statements are correct. Please also refer to the explanations. Question number 29 gives us 3 statements and it is asked that which among them are included under the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. Now let us first understand what do we mean by International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. ICESCR, abbreviation for the same, is a multilateral treaty adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. Came into force in 1976 and the main goal of this treaty was to provide economic, social and cultural rights to the non-self-governing and trust territories. Now in this context, let us move back to our question and see which of these were provided under these economic, social and cultural rights. Now the first one says right to education. This is a provision which is provided under this treaty. Hence, statement 1 is correct. Apart from right to education, right to health is also a provision under ICESCR treaty. So, the second statement is also correct. The third statement says that there should be right to social security and insurance. Now, this is also covered under this treaty as it is a bare minimum requirement for any citizen. Hence, our final answer would be option D, that is all statements are correct. Please also have a look at the explanations. Now question number 30 contains 4 statements and we need to identify that which among them are the features of federalism. Now let us first understand the definition of federalism. A federal government is one in which powers are divided between the national government and the regional government by the constitution itself, and both operate in their respective jurisdictions independently. Now in light of this definition, let us go back to our statements. The first statement says that federalism incorporates distribution of legislative and executive powers between the center and the states. Now, by definition of federalism itself, we can understand that the first statement is correct. Moving on to the second statement, it says that the states have a right to collect their own revenue. Now this statement is also correct as under state list, it is mentioned that the state has the power to collect revenue in their own territories. Now moving on to the third statement, it says that the amendment of the fundamental provisions of Constitution is done by both center and states. Now this statement is also correct because there are certain provisions in the Constitution wherein ratification is needed from less than 1/2 of the states. For example, the recent amendment of GST. Hence, both center and the state are required to make an amendment in the provisions of the Constitution. Now coming to the fourth statement, it is suggested that the center has the power to issue directions to the states. Now this statement is incorrect because we just discussed the definition of federalism and we understood that both states and centers have the power to operate independently. Also, under the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution, the state has been given powers to make laws with respect to the state list and concurrent list. Therefore, our final answer would be option B, that is statement 1, 2 and 3 are correct. Please also have a look at the explanations.